Welcome to Daily Global Motivation, the place where transformation begins, strength is awakened, and excuses come to die. Today's message is one every person needs to hear, because it reveals a truth that can completely change the way you see yourself, your challenges, and your potential. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and share this video so you don't miss any daily messages designed to elevate your mindset and expand your life. Today, we're exposing the excuses that have been holding you back, not to shame you, but to show you that you're stronger than you've ever been told, stronger than you've ever believed, and stronger than the voice inside your head that keeps trying to limit you. This message will remind you of your power, your resilience, and your ability to rise no matter what stands in your way. Get ready, because we're going deep into the truth behind your excuses and how you can finally break free from them. Let's begin. Why you're stronger than your excuses and how to prove it. Excuses are nothing more than stories your mind creates to protect you from discomfort, fear, and uncertainty. But those stories are not based on your strength, they're based on your doubts. Excuses sound convincing because they come from a place of safety, not a place of truth. They whisper that you're too tired, too busy, too inexperienced, too overwhelmed, or too broken to move forward. But those whispers reflect your fears, not your capabilities. Deep down, you know you've overcome far worse situations than the ones you're facing now. You've survived heartbreak, disappointment, pressure, failure, setbacks, and moments where you thought you had nothing left but you rose anyway. That alone proves your power. Excuses cannot survive in the presence of your truth, because your truth is stronger, deeper, and more resilient than any mental barrier your mind tries to build. The moment you stop believing your excuses is the moment you unlock your true strength and discover who you really are beneath the fear. One of the reasons your excuses feel so powerful because they disguise themselves as logic, but they are nothing more than emotional reactions wrapped in reasonable sounding words. When you feel fear, your mind creates a logical explanation for why you shouldn't act. When you feel overwhelmed, your mind creates a logical excuse for why you should wait. When you feel insecure, your mind creates a logical argument for why you're not ready. But logic based on fear is not logic, it's avoidance. And avoidance is the fastest way to weaken yourself, delay your growth, and sabotage your future. Your excuses are not reflections of reality, they're reflections of your comfort zone, a zone that was never designed to hold your potential. You are stronger than the arguments your fear presents, and once you see that your excuses are built on emotion, not truth, you begin weakening the foundation they stand on. You begin realizing that courage is not the absence of fear, it's refusing to let fear dictate your decisions. Your excuses often feel stronger than your will, because you repeat them so often that they become familiar, and what is familiar becomes believable. The mind prefers repetition over reality, comfort over progress, and safety over growth. But repetition does not make something true, it only makes it convincing. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes part of your identity. And that is exactly what your excuses try to do. They try to turn temporary doubt into permanent limitation. They try to turn a moment of weakness into a lifelong belief. They try to turn "I'm not ready" into "I'm not capable." But the moment you challenge the repetition, the illusion shatters. The moment you question the excuse, its power dissolves. Your strength grows every time you interrupt the pattern, every time you choose action over hesitation, every time you decide not to let your excuses define your future. Your identity is stronger than your excuses if you choose to build it instead of surrender to it. Every excuse you make is built on the assumption that your current feelings will last forever. But your feelings are temporary and your strength is permanent. You might feel tired now, but you have felt tired before and still completed the task. You might feel unmotivated now, but you have acted without motivation many times in your life. You might feel afraid now, but fear has never stopped you from surviving storms you didn't think you could endure. Your excuses forget your history, but your strength remembers. Your excuses focus on the moment, but your power is built from a lifetime of resilience, courage, and perseverance. You are not someone who gives up easily. You are someone who adapts, who survives, who rises. So when your mind tells you you can't, remind yourself of every moment when you proved that you could. When it says not today, remind yourself that today is exactly when it matters most. You are stronger than your feelings, stronger than your doubt, and stronger than your excuses every time. Excuses gain power when you forget the truth about your own resilience, but when you remember everything you've survived, everything you've overcome, and everything you've endured, your excuses lose their strength instantly. You have already lived through situations that were far more intense than the fears your excuses warn you about. You have already handled responsibilities that were heavier than the tasks you're avoiding. You have already faced challenges that required more courage than anything you're resisting now. But excuses try to make you forget the warrior inside you by focusing your attention only on the discomfort in front of you. They shrink your strength, dim your potential, and distort your memory of your own power. But your power is still there. Your resilience is still there. Your courage is still there. Once you remember the storms you've walked through, the mountains you've climbed, and the nights you thought you wouldn't survive, but did anyway, your excuses become laughable. They cannot stand up to the truth of who you are, because who you are is far stronger than anything your excuses claim. Your excuses are also fueled by your desire for comfort, because the mind is wired to avoid pain, avoid risk, and avoid uncertainty, but comfort is where dreams go to die. Everything you want in life lives outside of comfort, and your excuses are simply the voice of comfort, trying to keep you exactly where you are. Comfort feels safe, predictable, and familiar, but it also suffocates your potential. It tells you to stay small, stay silent, stay still, and stay the same. But every time you choose growth, you teach your mind that discomfort is not danger, it is development. Discomfort is the price of progress. Discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Discomfort is the sign that you're becoming someone stronger. Your excuses want you to avoid that discomfort, but your destiny requires you to walk through it. And every time you choose a step forward instead of a step backward, you weaken the grip your comfort zone has on your life. You prove through action, not words, that your potential matters more than your excuses. Excuses often disguise themselves as good reasons, telling you that you need more time, more resources, more knowledge, or more motivation before you begin. But needing more is just another form of delay. You don't need more time, you need to use the time you have differently. You don't need more resources, you need to start with what you have. You don't need more knowledge, you need to learn through action. You don't need more motivation, you need discipline that thrives even in its absence. The truth is, most people never feel fully ready before they start, but the ones who succeed are the ones who start anyway. They begin imperfectly. They begin uncertain. They begin afraid. And through that action, they grow into someone stronger than the version of themselves who waited for comfort. Your excuses trick you into believing you must be perfect before taking action, but action is what makes you better. Action creates readiness. Action builds mastery. Action destroys hesitation. And the moment you start, even if you start small, your excuses lose their foundation. Another reason your excuses seem powerful is because you repeat them in silence, allowing them to echo inside your mind without challenge. Silence is fertile ground for excuses. They grow louder, stronger, and more convincing when they go unchallenged. But when you bring your excuses into the light by speaking them out loud, writing them down, or sharing them with someone, they crumble. Because most excuses sound ridiculous when exposed. They sound weak when spoken. They lose their illusion when examined. When you confront an excuse with truth, honesty, and self-awareness, it loses its power. When you question it, is this true? Is this necessary? Is this serving me? It falls apart. And when you compare your excuses to your goals, dreams, and future, they fade into insignificance. You silence excuses by refusing to let them live unchecked inside your mind. Your voice is stronger than your excuses when you choose to use it. And once you challenge the lies your mind keeps repeating, you uncover a strength you forgot you had. Your excuses feel heavy because you carry them alone, but strength grows when you seek accountability, support, and community. When you share your goals with someone who pushes you, your excuses lose their grip. When you surround yourself with people who value growth, your excuses lose their justification. When you spend time with disciplined, focused, driven individuals, your excuses become uncomfortable in their presence. Accountability exposes the truth. You are capable of more than you've been giving yourself credit for. It forces you to show up even when you're tired, to act even when you're afraid, to move even when your mind begs for comfort. Accountability shifts your perspective from I can't to I must, from I'll try to I will. It replaces excuses with responsibility, hesitation with momentum, and intention with action. When you surround yourself with people who expect more from you, you become someone who expects more from yourself. And in that transformation, your excuses no longer fit the person you are becoming. Your excuses also thrive when you underestimate your ability to adapt, because excuses rely on the belief that you are not capable of change, but you have been adapting your entire life. You adapted to pain you never expected, responsibilities you never planned for, obstacles you didn't ask for, and situations you didn't choose, but you still found a way. Adaptation is built into your nature. It is one of your greatest strengths, even if you rarely give yourself credit for it. Every time life shifted, you adjusted. Every time plans broke, you rebuilt. Every time someone walked away, you kept going. Every time something challenged you, you learned how to overcome it. So when your excuses tell you this is too hard, they are ignoring your entire history of adapting and evolving. They forget that you've already handled far more difficult changes. The truth is, you grow stronger every time your life demands it. And once you recognize that you can adapt to anything, your excuses lose the ability to scare you into staying the same. Excuses are powerful because they appeal to your fears, but your courage is always stronger than your fear when you allow it to lead. You've had moments in your life where you were terrified but acted anyway, moments where something inside you rose louder than the fear. That voice, that force, that instinct was your courage, and it never left you. Excuses try to bury your courage under layers of hesitation, overthinking, and doubt. But courage does not disappear just because fear gets loud. Courage is always waiting beneath the surface, ready to carry you into the next chapter of your growth. Every time you take action despite fear, that courage grows. Every time you refuse to let an excuse dictate your behavior, that courage strengthens. Every time you choose progress over comfort, that courage becomes easier to access. Courage is not a one-time event, it is a muscle that grows through use. And you have far more courage within you than your excuses want you to believe. Your excuses insist that you're not ready, but readiness is not something you find, it's something you create through action. The truth is, no one ever feels fully prepared before they step into something new. Growth always requires uncertainty. Progress always requires risk. Transformation always requires stepping into the unknown. But your excuses try to convince you that uncertainty means you should wait, delay, or avoid, but uncertainty simply means you're entering a new level of your life. You become ready by moving, not by thinking. You become capable by trying, not by planning forever. You become confident by doing, not by waiting for confidence to magically appear. Readiness is built, not discovered. And the moment you take that first step, even a small one, you prove to yourself that your excuses were protecting your comfort, not your future. Action is the antidote to hesitation. Action is the destroyer of excuses. And once you act, you immediately weaken the lie that you weren't ready. Excuses survive when you treat progress as optional, but your life changes the moment you decide that progress is a requirement. When you treat growth as a non-negotiable responsibility, you strip your excuses of their influence. You stop allowing your emotions to determine your choices. You stop accepting the easy path as an option. You stop compromising on the goals you claim to care about. When progress becomes a must, not a maybe, your excuses lose their authority over your life. You start waking up with purpose. You start moving with intention. You start making decisions that align with the person you want to become, not the person you're trying to outgrow. When growth becomes part of your identity, excuses have nowhere left to live. You stop bending to your fears and start bending your fears to your will. This is how transformation begins, not with a massive leap, but with a shift in expectation. Progress becomes mandatory. Growth becomes standard. Excuses become irrelevant. Your excuses often feel powerful because they highlight your weaknesses, but they completely ignore your strengths, and your strengths are far greater than your weaknesses will ever be. Your strength is in your resilience, your ability to keep going when others quit. Your strength is in your heart, the part of you that still hopes even after disappointment. Your strength is in your discipline, the part of you that continues showing up even when it's hard. Your strength is in your experience, the wisdom you gained from surviving everything meant to break you. Your strength is in your endurance, the endurance that has carried you through storms others never saw. Your strength is in your desire to grow, because that desire alone makes you unstoppable. Your excuses want you to believe that your weakness defines you, but your strength is what has carried you this far, and it is what will carry you forward. When you remember your strengths, your excuses lose their voice completely. Your excuses often claim you lack discipline, but discipline is not something you're born with, it's something you build by proving to yourself, again and again, that you can rise above temporary feelings. Discipline grows every time you take action when you don't feel like it, every time you show up when comfort tries to pull you back, every time you choose progress over procrastination. You have already displayed discipline many times in your life. You've done hard things when no one was watching. You've overcome challenges without any applause. You've stayed committed to responsibilities even when you felt exhausted. Your excuses ignore these moments, but those moments reveal your true character. Discipline is not perfection, it is persistence. It is the willingness to keep going when quitting seems easier. It is the strength to choose long-term reward over short-term comfort. And when you start treating discipline as a habit instead of a talent, you realize that you are far more capable of consistency than your excuses want you to believe. Your excuses also gain strength when you forget the power of small, repeated actions. Many people believe they need to make huge changes to transform their lives, but transformation is built through simple, daily steps taken with intention. Excuses feed on overwhelm. They convince you that the task is too big, the goal is too far, the journey is too long. But when you break your goals into small, manageable actions, the overwhelm disappears. Every step becomes possible. Every effort becomes progress. Every day becomes an opportunity to move forward. Small actions are powerful because they create momentum, and momentum destroys excuses. Once you start moving, even slowly, your brain shifts from resistance to rhythm. You prove to yourself that improvement is always within reach. And this daily momentum becomes your greatest weapon against the excuses that once controlled your life. Excuses thrive when you rely on motivation, because motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, rises and falls, strengthens and fades without warning. If your progress depends on motivation, you will always struggle, because motivation is emotional and emotions are inconsistent. But your strength is not in your emotions, it's in your ability to act regardless of how you feel. Success is built on habits, routines, discipline, and identity, not motivation. When you stop waiting to feel ready and start acting because your future depends on it, your excuses lose their most powerful tool. You no longer pause when motivation disappears. You no longer collapse when you're tired. You no longer retreat when you're uninspired. You continue anyway, because action becomes your default state, not motivation. And when you stop treating motivation like fuel and start treating discipline like oxygen, excuses suffocate. Your excuses also lose power when you shift your focus from perfection to progress. Perfection traps you in endless delays, endless overthinking, endless hesitation, because if something isn't perfect, your excuses convince you it shouldn't be done at all. But perfection is impossible, and waiting for it destroys momentum. Progress, on the other hand, is achievable every single day. Progress is flexible. Progress is built on effort, not flawlessness. Progress is forgiving. When you commit to progress, you allow yourself to try, to learn, to improve, to fall, to rise, and to repeat. You become someone who moves forward continually instead of someone who waits endlessly. Perfection kills dreams, progress builds them. The moment you realize this, your excuses lose their ability to trap you, because progress can always be made, no matter how small. And when progress becomes the goal, excuses become irrelevant. Your excuses finally weaken when you reconnect with your purpose, because purpose gives you something bigger than fear, bigger than doubt, and bigger than hesitation. When you have a powerful why, excuses lose their influence, because your drive becomes stronger than your resistance. Your purpose is what pulls you forward when your excuses try to pull you back. It is what reminds you why you started when your mind tries to make you forget. Purpose gives meaning to the struggle and value to the effort. It turns discipline into devotion and sacrifice into investment. When you remember the life you are fighting for, the future you want to create, and the version of yourself you are becoming, your excuses shrink in comparison. Purpose is the ultimate antidote to hesitation. When your why is strong enough, your excuses simply cannot compete. Your excuses lose even more power when you acknowledge that every great achievement you admire was built by ordinary people who simply refuse to let excuses control them. The strongest people you know are not superhuman, they are simply consistent. They felt fear, but acted anyway. They felt doubt, but persevered anyway. They felt tired, but showed up anyway. They felt overwhelmed, but kept going anyway. If you looked behind every success story, you would find thousands of moments where excuses tried to take over, but each time, the person chose discipline instead of delay. You have the same capacity. You have the same potential. The only real difference between you and the people who achieve extraordinary things is that they stopped listening to the voice that said, "Not today," and started listening to the voice that said, "Now." Every time you choose action over excuses, you join the category of people who refuse to live beneath their potential. You become someone who is defined by effort, not excuses. Your excuses crumble when you start measuring your days by what you did, not by what you felt, because feelings fluctuate, but actions build your legacy. You may feel tired, but you can still act. You may feel discouraged, but you can still move forward. You may feel unmotivated, but you can still do one small step. When you measure progress based on action instead of emotion, you stop giving your excuses room to influence your behavior. You stop waiting for the perfect emotional state. You stop expecting to wake up overflowing with energy every single day. You start focusing on what is within your control, your choices, your behavior, your effort. You realize that strong people are not the ones who feel strong, they are the ones who act strong, especially on the days they feel weak. When you start living this way, your excuses no longer determine your productivity. Your effort does, and effort, unlike excuses, always moves you forward. Excuses fade when you stop negotiating with your goals, because every time you negotiate with yourself, you train your mind to choose the easier path. You say you'll start tomorrow. You say you'll take a break today. You say you'll try later. But each negotiation weakens your resolve and strengthens your excuses. The moment you stop negotiating and start committing, everything changes. You treat your goals like responsibilities, not suggestions. You treat your dreams like obligations, not hobbies. You treat your future like something sacred instead of something optional. When you eliminate negotiation, you eliminate hesitation. Your mind learns that action is non-negotiable. Your habits strengthen. Your discipline solidifies. Your excuses lose their leverage. And you finally begin walking the path that leads to the life you know you're capable of achieving. Your excuses weaken when you start practicing self-respect, because excuses are often rooted in the belief that you are not worthy of effort, achievement, or progress. But every time you show up for yourself, even in small ways, you reinforce your own worth. When you keep promises to yourself, you rebuild trust in your own ability. When you push through discomfort, you show yourself that you are worth fighting for. When you prioritize your goals, you demonstrate that your dreams matter. And when you choose discipline over excuses, you prove that your future deserves the best version of you, not the most comfortable version. Self-respect grows through consistent action. And as your self-respect grows, your excuses shrink, because someone who believes in their own value does not accept self-sabotage. Someone who knows their worth refuses to allow excuses to steal their potential. Your excuses become powerless when you realize that your future depends on the decisions you make today, not the excuses you make today. Every choice is a vote for who you become. Every action is a step towards your destiny. Every moment of discipline strengthens the future version of you who is waiting to emerge. Excuses rob you of that future. They steal opportunities before you even get the chance to pursue them. They keep you stuck in a life you've outgrown. But you are stronger than the chains of your past. You are stronger than the limitations of your mind. You are stronger than the reasons you give yourself to stay the same. When you start choosing your future over your excuses, your life begins to transform. And once you taste the power of progress, you will never want to return to the comfort of excuses again. Your excuses begin to dissolve when you finally admit that they have never helped you grow, never helped you succeed, never helped you evolve. They've only delayed the life you want, every dream you've postponed, every goal you've abandoned, every opportunity you've missed has roots in an excuse that felt convincing in the moment, but destructive in hindsight. Excuses protect your comfort, but they destroy your progress. They preserve your safety, but they sabotage your potential. They shield you from risk, but they also shield you from reward. When you confront this truth, you realize that excuses are not your allies, they are your obstacles. And once you stop treating them as harmless thoughts and start treating them as barriers to your greatness, you naturally develop the strength to overcome them. You start recognizing excuses not as reasons, but as warnings that you're stepping into a new level of growth. The moment you see excuses as the enemy of your future, you begin choosing the actions that build your future instead. Excuses weaken when you embrace the reality that challenges are not punishments, they are opportunities to become stronger. Every obstacle you face is preparing you for the next stage of your life. Every difficulty is expanding your capacity. Every struggle is strengthening your character. Every setback is sharpening your resilience. Excuses thrive when you see challenges as signs that you should stop. But challenges are actually signs that you should continue. They mean you're growing. They mean you're leveling up. They mean you're stepping into a version of yourself you've never met before. When you start viewing challenges as training instead of threats, your excuses lose their influence instantly. You stop running from obstacles and start running toward them. You stop avoiding discomfort and start embracing it. And you begin realizing that every challenge you conquer proves, once again, that you are stronger than your excuses could ever be. Your excuses crumble when you finally acknowledge the truth that there is no perfect moment waiting for you somewhere in the future. The perfect moment is not coming. It does not exist. Waiting for it is one of the greatest traps of the human mind. When your excuses say later, they're really saying never. When they say tomorrow, they're trying to push your dream into a place where it will no longer survive. But when you take action now today, in this imperfect moment you prove to yourself that you don't need ideal conditions to begin. You only need willingness. You only need intention. You only need to decide that your future matters more than your comfort. The perfect moment is created by action, not by waiting. And once you take that first step, you immediately take control of your life, your goals, and your destiny. You show your excuses that you don't need permission, you only need commitment. Excuses lose their power when you realize that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret is forever. Discipline requires effort, discomfort, and sacrifice for a few minutes, hours, or days, but regret lasts years, decades, and sometimes entire lifetimes. Excuses may bring temporary relief, but they always deliver long-term consequences. Discipline may bring temporary difficulty, but it always delivers long-term reward. When you understand this trade-off, choosing discipline becomes the obvious choice. You begin prioritizing the future over the moment. You begin choosing growth over comfort. You begin valuing the life you want more than the ease of staying the same. Regret comes from excuses. Greatness comes from discipline. And once you internalize this truth, excuses lose their power permanently, because no temporary feeling can ever compete with the vision you have for your life. Excuses die when you finally decide to take extreme ownership of your life, because ownership eliminates blame, removes victimhood, and destroys self-sabotage. When you take ownership, you stop pointing at your past, your circumstances, your environment, or your emotions as reasons you cannot succeed. You begin pointing at your decisions, your habits, your actions, and your priorities. Ownership is one of the most powerful forms of self-liberation, because it hands you back the power you unknowingly gave away. With ownership, you become unstoppable. You stop waiting for things to change and start changing them yourself. You stop hoping for luck and start building skill. You stop wishing for opportunities and start creating them. Excuses cannot survive in the presence of ownership, because ownership means you are in control. You are the creator of your life. You are the one who decides how far you go. And once you take ownership, nothing, not fear, not doubt, not circumstances, and definitely not excuses can hold you back. Your excuses weaken the moment you understand that your mind is not always telling you the truth. It is telling you what feels comfortable. Your mind is designed to protect you, not to push you. It detects discomfort and labels it as danger, even when that discomfort is the birthplace of your growth. It tries to convince you that sticking with what you know is safer than stepping into the unknown. But your greatest achievements have always come from moments where you ignored that voice and did what was necessary. The mind wants familiarity, but your destiny requires expansion. And expansion cannot happen without stepping beyond the borders of your comfort zone. When you learn to challenge your initial thoughts instead of obeying them, you become powerful. You start questioning every excuse instead of accepting it. You start separating truth from fear. You start realizing that your potential begins where your excuses end. And once you gain control over the voice in your mind, your excuses lose their foundation completely. Your excuses start to crumble when you recognize how much time they've already cost you. Because excuses are time thieves that steal opportunities before you even experience them. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," you sacrifice today. Every time you say, "I'm not ready," you lose momentum. Every time you say, "Maybe later," you drift further away from the life you want. But when you become aware of the time you've already lost, weeks, months, years, you ignite a fire inside yourself that refuses to waste anymore. Time is the one resource you can never earn back. Excuses don't just delay your progress, they erase your potential. They push your dreams into a future you may never reach if you keep postponing your greatness. When you finally realize how precious your time is, you stop letting excuses dictate how you spend it. You start protecting your hours. You start valuing your days. You start honoring your future. And the person who values their time becomes unstoppable. Your excuses collapse when you imagine the version of yourself you could become if you stop letting hesitation control you. Picture the person you would be if you committed fully, if you acted consistently, if you showed up relentlessly. That version of you is not a fantasy, it is a reflection of your potential. Your excuses hide that version of you behind fear and doubt, but potential never disappears just because you've ignored it. It waits, it watches, it grows quietly in the background of your life, urging you to step into it. And every time you act in spite of excuses, you bring yourself closer to that future self. You feel alignment, you feel purpose, you feel power. When you envision the life you could have, you start to understand what is truly at stake. Your future self is either empowered by your decisions or disappointed by your excuses. And you always have the choice between the two. Your excuses lose their influence when you realize that your life does not change until you do. Opportunities won't magically appear. Luck won't suddenly transform your circumstances. Motivation won't save you. The only catalyst powerful enough to change your life is your own decision to become different. Transformation begins the moment you stop waiting and start acting. The moment you stop wishing and start working. The moment you stop complaining and start committing. Excuses fade when you understand that no one is coming to rescue you because you don't need rescuing. You are capable of building the life you want. You are capable of changing the direction of your story. You are capable of rewriting your future. But none of that begins until you stop choosing excuses over effort. And when you finally recognize that you are the solution, not the problem, your excuses lose every ounce of power. Your excuses disappear entirely when you experience the first undeniable proof of your strength, when you do something your excuses claimed you couldn't do. The moment you take that step, the moment you complete that task, the moment you push through resistance, your entire belief system shifts. You prove to yourself that the limitations you believed were real were nothing but lies. You prove that fear cannot stop you. You prove that doubt cannot define you. You prove that comfort cannot control you. That first victory becomes the spark that lights the fire of your confidence. After that, excuses become harder to believe because your evidence of strength becomes louder than your stories of weakness. One step forward changes everything. One act of courage destroys 1,000 excuses. One moment of discipline rewrites your identity. And when your identity changes, your entire life transforms with it. Your excuses finally become powerless when you recognize that every excuse is a fork in the road. One path leads to the life you want, and the other leads to the life you've settled for. Every time you choose an excuse, you strengthen the identity of someone who holds back, hesitates, and doubts. But every time you choose action, even small action, you strengthen the identity of someone who is committed, unstoppable, and fully aligned with their potential. Life is shaped by these small decisions, not by dramatic transformations. Each choice either pushes you closer to your greatness or pulls you deeper into your limitations. When you understand the weight of each tiny decision, you start treating your choices with more respect. You stop letting excuses guide you because you realize they are nothing more than doors to a life you don't want. And the moment you consistently choose the path of strength, you become someone your excuses can no longer control. Your excuses lose their grip when you understand that you don't need to eliminate them, you only need to overpower them. Excuses will always whisper, they will always show up. They will always attempt to steer you toward comfort. But your job is not to silence the excuses, your job is to act louder than they speak. Strong people are not people who have no excuses, they are people who refuse to obey their excuses. They hear the same thoughts everyone hears, but they make different decisions. They choose discipline over delay, courage over fear, commitment over laziness, intention over excuses. Once you grasp that excuses are part of the process, not a signal to stop, you no longer fear them. You no longer let them dominate your choices. You acknowledge them, but you move anyway. And every time you move, you break another link in the chain that excuses tried to wrap around your potential. Your excuses shatter when you embrace the truth that every breakthrough in life requires discomfort, uncertainty, and effort, and you are capable of all three. Comfort is easy, but greatness was never built in easy places. Uncertainty is intimidating, but every powerful transformation is born from stepping into the unknown. Effort is exhausting, but effort is the currency of achievement. Your excuses want you to believe you can't handle these things, but your life proves otherwise. You've handled discomfort your entire life. You've navigated uncertainty every time you stepped into a new chapter. You've exerted effort in situations far harder than the ones you're facing now. You were built for more than ease. You were built for challenge, growth, expansion, and elevation. And when you embrace discomfort as part of your evolution instead of something to avoid, your excuses dissolve because they no longer make sense to the version of you who is rising. Your excuses crumble into dust when you realize that your life is already giving you signs that it's time to level up. You've felt the frustration of staying the same. You've felt the discomfort of stagnation. You've felt the inner pull telling you that you are meant for more than the routine being repeating. These emotions are not random, they are signals. Signals that your potential is outgrowing your excuses. Signals that your destiny is calling you forward. Signals that your excuses no longer match the person you are becoming. When you listen to those signals, everything changes. You start hearing your inner strength more clearly. You start trusting your instincts more boldly. You start moving with greater purpose and intention. And the more you listen to your potential instead of your excuses, the more unstoppable you become. Your excuses disappear completely when you finally make a decision, an unbreakable decision to stop living at war with your potential and start living in alignment with your purpose. Decisions shape destiny far more than talent, luck, or timing. When you make a true decision, not a wish, not a hope, not a half-hearted plan, but a decision backed by action, excuses lose their authority. Your mind shifts, your energy shifts, your habits shift, your entire identity shifts. You stop defaulting to comfort and start defaulting to growth. You stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself direction. And in that decision, you prove to yourself that you are the one in control, not your excuses, not your fear, not your past. You. The moment of decision is the moment your life begins transforming for real. You are stronger than your fear, stronger than your doubt, stronger than your hesitation, stronger than the limitations you once believed were permanent, stronger than every story your mind told you to keep you small. Your excuses were designed to protect your comfort, not your future. But your future requires courage, commitment, and the willingness to rise above the voice that says, not today. Today you learn the truth. You are not weak. You are not incapable. You are not stuck. You are powerful beyond measure, and the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is the excuse you choose to believe. Choose to believe in your strength instead. Choose to act. Choose to rise. Choose to prove to yourself, starting right now, that your future means more than your comfort, because you are stronger than your excuses, and the world needs the version of you that stops holding back. If today's message hit your spirit, then make sure you stay connected to Daily Global Motivation, where every day you become stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable. Before you go, subscribe, like, comment your favorite part or the excuse you're ready to destroy. Share this video with someone who needs this message today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for showing up for yourself. And thank you for choosing strength over excuses. I'll see you in the next video.